Welcome to the second episode of our Analytical Autumn installment on budgeting. In last week's video, we talked about the general terms utilized in budgeting, whether that's for personal finance purposes or business sales budgeting. This week, we'll be talking about some tools and tricks that can be utilized when setting up a budget for your personal finance purpose or for business sales budgeting. When it comes to utilizing tools, there is a plethora of tools out there. Some may be purchased, some may be designed, and ultimately, the right tool for you depends on your needs and your preferences. Your needs for budgeting will be based on the categories you are budgeting for. And your preferences will depend on whether you prefer digital versus hard tools, as well as the visuals utilized in these tools. In a corporate setting, business sales budgeting may be performed on particular platforms or apps, or even specific software. Sometimes there isn't much flexibility when utilizing tools in this kind of setting. However, it is always possible to design something particular for yourself that makes you comfortable in the budgeting process. And furthermore, transcribing it back into a particular platform may be an easier, more seamless way to perform your duties. Last month, we covered the topic of personal finance in a previous video. We talked about utilizing an Excel tool that you may design. However, since it is a very trendy topic these days, personal finance has boomed with lots of content creators, financiers, and so many people online are talking about it. This is a great thing because there are a lot of tools that have been designed, as well as apps that are created to cover this topic. Hence, there's so much to choose from. It all comes down to what you would want to do. Are you willing to pay a price for a tool? Is it a very big burden for you to create a tool? If so, definitely search for an app that works for you, or search for a tool that has been created by somebody else, either an expert or an amateur, and if you feel comfortable with that tool, utilize it. I previously covered the tool that I had created for our family from a personal finance budgeting standpoint. If there is sufficient interest in utilizing the tool I had created, drop a comment down below and let me know, and I'd make it available. All you need to do is have something that looks visually pleasing, is able to organize the data in a manner that is understandable for you on a screen. The most important aspect when utilizing a tool for budgeting is, will you stick with it? Jumping around from one tool to another is perfectly fine when you're learning what tool works for you, but ultimately, consistency and sustainability are both very important when it comes to utilizing a tool long term. This is, after all, an exercise that you do need to stick with. A very commonly used app, in Canada at least, is Wealthsimple. For me personally, I prefer to use a tool that I've created because I understand it fully, and I've designed it for my needs. This way, I know that I'll stick with using this tool every week. This takes us to a next topic in utilizing tools. How frequently should you be using them? When you're first starting, it's important to visit these budgeting tools very regularly, if not every day, then every other day. Likewise, when you have duties at work for budgeting purposes. A sales role would require you to visit your tools every single day to make sure that you're reminded of what needs to be done. You'll have the expectations fresh in your mind on what to be done on a daily basis. Now, going back to the tools. Some tools can be presented in an input-output visual. It's important to use a tool that requires minimal input and automates a lot of the output, if not all of it. In addition, you may want visuals such as graphs in the form of bar charts, trend lines, and time frame views, whether that's monthly or annually, or perhaps even quarterly. Of course, it's important to have visuals on input for income as well as output on expenses. If you create a budgeting tool for personal finance purposes, when it comes to performing sales budgets, it becomes a much simpler process. Although creating budgets for personal expenses is a very different variable review than setting budgets for a sales purpose, understanding and breaking down the data is more or less the same. It's all about considering the variables that will create your budget and then setting them down, analyzing the facts, and creating a framework that is based on data as opposed to a hunch. Again, for a sales budget, all variables need to be considered, a realistic target needs to be created, but unfortunately, in this case, the budget cannot be reviewed multiple times because a budget is set. In last month's video, we did talk about the different terminology utilized in business sales budgeting. If there are going to be reviews, these would be recreated in the form of a projection or a forecast. However, a budget is always set. That is why you may need some practice when creating budgets, and early on, you may be redesigning and reviewing your budgets very regularly before you stick with it.